is working the way I need it to. All right, welcome to a special edition of the Bonnet Chronicles, y'all. I want to thank everybody for your patience. I know the last two Bonnet Chronicles had to be either delayed or postponed because of real life. And yesterday, as much as I wanted to get everything fired up, I had the show notes ready. Kiddo had school stuff, and for me, my main rule is his education comes first. This stuff is just extra for me. Being able to talk to you guys about politics and social issues is fun for me, but I also have to be a mom, and that is first and foremost for me, is to make sure that his space is, you know, pressure free so that he can get his schoolwork done without having to worry about it. And normally on Tuesdays he's done a bit early, so I figured Tuesdays would be a perfect day to do the Bonnet Chronicles, because then I could do these from 4 to 5, get the poison out of my system about what's going on in this crazy country, and keep it moving. Unfortunately for me, real life happens, and sometimes he gets a lot more schoolwork, and I just realized that it was getting closer to 5 before he was finished, and there was just no point of trying to do an hour cast and then rush and do dinner. So, hey, welcome to the chat, Beanie. But I just want to thank everybody who has been supportive of these Bonnet Chronicles. Let me put the word out too. Of the mental health vlog, I just recorded one of those. I'll have that uploaded first. I appreciate all the love and support that you guys have been giving me. Twitter has been rough though. I'm going to get to the heart of that. That's why I have this Twitter thing up right here. But I really want to stress that we all have to stop treating Twitter like it is such a big part of our lives that we can't let it go if it's stressing us out. And while it sucks seeing people deactivate their account, and I stress to you that if the argument is getting that bad, there are ways to mitigate that. But I don't want anybody staying on social media if it's more than that. Somebody dear to me left because she was being harassed. And what bothers me is that one of the culprits is somebody I also respect. But this person has an instigator issue. And she's been starting shit with a lot of people, and then she plays victim when you shine the light on her. And it's like, I didn't like people like this in high school. I don't know if it's a New York thing, Beanie. You can back me up on this. I don't like instigators. And I am seeing a lot of freaking instigators on Twitter. A lot of people who look for somebody they think is big. They follow you and they hype up fighting. They love it when you're beefing back and forth. And they especially love it when they can wreck somebody's account. And it's getting exhausting. Exactly, Beans. Case leaving, it doesn't shock me after the last few days. But what shocks me is just how many people are acting like Twitter is their high school clique. Whether it's the, oh, you talk to this person, you can't talk to me and mine type attitudes, or just the fighting over every little thing. I know that we are sore. I know that we have come out of a 4-year funk. I know that a lot of us just don't trust anything still, but we've got to stop fighting so many battles with one another. People are allowed to have a difference of opinion. What I learned to do, because I'm telling you, this comes from a place of somebody who did all of the bad shit on Twitter. All the mean girl, all the dumb back and forth beefing, all that dumb high school stuff back in the day that wore me out. I just stopped. It really isn't that hard to. I moved away from it. I realized that I could talk about stuff on Twitter without arguing with people. When people try to come at me, because I'm not looking after their page, I'm not seeking them out. When they come to try to troll me, I realize, okay, you wasted your 280 characters, I think we get now, to try to get a rise out of me, and all you get is blocked. I realize there are people that I follow that sometimes tweet stuff just to get a rise out of people. I don't have to respond. I don't have to agree or disagree. And I'm not everybody's mama. So I'm not here to tell you how to tweet. One of the things that floored me a couple of days ago, and probably why I haven't been in my DMs, so if you've been DMing me, I am so sorry. I'll get to them eventually. It gets overwhelming. But somebody literally apologized to me for having their own opinion in the DM. And I don't want you following me if you think I am going to be mad at you for thinking your way. I'm not a Borg. I don't expect us to all be raised the same way. I know a lot of us generational wise, which I really was enjoying the Gen X thread, you know, even though some of y'all tried to derail that too, which is nonsense. I like that a lot of us from my generation, especially, we just don't care on that level. We don't give a fuck about the cool kids table because we were always the weirdos of the situation anyway. So you can fight for that popularity. The rest of us will just sit at the side and side-eye you. But I'm just tired of seeing good people who just want to share stuff. Case was a wealth of both LGBT history and just realness that I hate is not going to be on that site anymore. But what I didn't want to do, especially for her, is make her feel like she had to be on there. Because it does get overwhelming. I know there were several times, especially last year, that I hovered on deactivating my account. It just gets to you. When you already have the outside world treating you like garbage, when you already have people targeting you for who you are, the last thing you want to do is go to social media and have to defend yourself from both trolls and apparent allies. And some of you, you're so smart in the stuff you do. You're either accomplished at your job, allegedly, or whatnot. And you give off this attitude of arrogance, like because you're so good in your field, you know everything. But you don't know our lives. And like I said, I can understand both sides of the argument that really upset Case. I can understand the not letting what people post get to me. That's why I mute a lot of people. That's why I've definitely negated certain terms. And that's why every once in a while I'll call some of you out for screen capping bullshit, because there are certain people I have blocked for a reason. I shouldn't see what Mima says. I blocked everything Elizabeth Warren. Yet some of you get around that with screen caps. But I realize that I don't have to let even that get to me. I just watch who keeps repeat offending, and I put you in the block bin or I put you in the mute bin now. Because I'm not going to keep making my experience on Twitter toxic when there are tools that I can use to navigate and not have to deal with that. One of the big things that I had to do on Twitter, and exactly means a lot of people were saying that they didn't get to say goodbye, because a lot of people will say on Twitter, I'm leaving, and not really leave. But Case was for real. I knew she was serious about it, and that's the sad thing, because a lot of us have been feeling it. But I think the thing that really troubles me about her leaving was it felt coordinated, because there are people who get their jollies attacking what they think are big accounts. You don't think I see what people say? Like, I think people underestimate the way my sociopathic brain works. I might be detached, but it doesn't mean I don't feel things sometimes. And I feel that people there's something primal about them taking down what they think is a big account. And for them, anybody over a certain thousand is a big account. And they just love it when people step in it. And I've watched several people do that. And I tell people all the time, karma will come for you. You might rejoice the fact that Case left, but I guarantee you that's just going to come around to all of you who helped make that happen. And I'm not saying that to put things on you. I'm just saying it because that's the Twitter circle of fucking life. So really, honestly speaking, I hope that pushing the fact that you can post what you want was worth it, because you can. Honestly speaking, I understood that side of the argument, that people are allowed to post what they want on their Twitter timelines, and we are responsible for what we intake, which is why I am very careful on what I click on. I've made it where videos don't automatically play, because there was a lot of videos of legalized lynching that I didn't want to see. After George Floyd, after I had to break down on video asking people to stop murdering us, I realized I can't click on every video shared on Twitter. My heart and soul and mind can't take seeing another black body either murdered, riddled with bullets, or any of that stuff. And y'all share that, not realizing who has to click around it. So I realized instead of getting so upset every time, instead of letting it trigger me every time, like I've had to do with every facet of my life, I learned how to navigate those Twitter streets. Just like surviving after being sexually assaulted, you learn how to not put your trust out there for people because they'll betray you. And social media is awful with that betrayal. They are awful with showing these videos. Like, I know what's going on in the Ukraine is horrible. I study history. I know that there are people suffering. I don't have to watch the videos to know, and my heart and prayers and really want to kick the UN in the ass to boot goes out to the Ukrainian people. But I don't need to torture porn. And I think people honestly have to realize that and agree, Beans. I think there's always room to keep information prevalent. I think that we have to make sure that the world doesn't close its eyes to the atrocities, but I also understand that people get triggered by violence. People have lived this life. You're going to tell somebody who more than likely survived violence that they have to look at violence? We know violence exists, and we don't need you self-righteously telling us, you should look at this. One of the things that floored me, one of the main reasons why I was going to quit Twitter last year was because somebody was telling me I had to watch the George Floyd tape. I had to watch what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. Why? I knew about black lynching all my fucking life. I don't need it in digital form. Y'all need to see that shit. You don't need to tell me, a black woman who's trying not to be the next hashtag, that I have to see stuff like that. And that is when I started taking my Twitter breaks. And I know those of you who follow me know that there are times where I'll go for weeks even, where I won't post a thing. I just need to disconnect from all of that toxic crap. And I swear to you, I was ready to go. Because even with the upcoming trial and stuff, my brain goes, I just can't take this no more. I'm glad I didn't, because I do love a lot of the interactions I have on Twitter. Yesterday, for every bit of sadness I felt about Case, and when I thought Lee was leaving, and Lee, you're not allowed to leave. I need my daily Willie updates. Thank you very much, to take breaks. But when I thought several of my friends were just going to stop posting, and even you, Beans, even you've gotten to that point where you thought, fuck Twitter. I think we all get to that fuck Twitter point. Instead of deactivating, I take breaks. And breaks actually work. Breaks are like complete breaks for me now. It used to be when I first started taking breaks, I would still lurk and read stuff and get upset. And then it was like, I got a lot of other things I got to do. I'm trying to write an isekai novel for black people. And there's a lot on my plate that I can get done that doesn't have to connect me to social media. I miss the interaction sometimes because you guys are fun to talk with. But for me, I feel like a lot of people don't understand I don't need Twitter every day. And y'all don't need Twitter every day, especially if Twitter is raising your blood pressure or getting you upset. Take time away. Let yourself miss this place, because it's not going to change. There are a lot of people overly opinionated. Way too many people sharing things. I know y'all have seen that Paula Patton video. Like, I love cooking. I don't think anybody who knows me is shocked. I love to cook. And meat and poultry are part of my diet because of my anemia and other deficiencies that I have to keep regulated. When I say you do not just rinse off chicken in cold water, put it in unseasoned flour, toss that now coated slimy meat in flour, throw it in the grease, and then season the grease and call that frying chicken. I am not just being an old salty woman. I am telling you, brine is your friend. If you want to make any poultry, especially pop, stick that stuff in either dry brine overnight, because you can dry brine, but I think that makes it a bit too salty, or wet brine. Those bags that she had full of flour should have just been the salt water ratio. I think I do 4-to-1. And stick your wings in there overnight. You'll thank me. Especially if you're season averse like she was. Who seasons grease anyway? All I did was burn up and darken up her grease. And then when she cut into that chicken and it was raw, I'm going to tell you something about poultry. Unlike steak, you can't eat chicken medium rare. That will send you to the hospital. Exactly. There was just so many things wrong with her technique. And I know that people wanted to clown on her mama being white. But no, I've lived in the South. White people can make fried chicken. That is not a white person thing. That might be a California thing. And I'm sorry if you're from the West Coast. You might want to ding me, and I'm sorry. But that seems more like a California bullshit thing. Because if you're black in the East Coast or you're black, white, Mexican in the Southern, you know how to fry some chicken. You know that seasoning goes in the flour. Seasoning for my family goes on the bird itself, too. We brine our meat, we season it, and then we lightly coat it because I don't like heavy flour. I don't like my chicken to be so thick with the flour coating that it takes a while to get to the meat. So we've always did a lighter thing. We don't go heavy flour. We like cornstarch as well because it gives a lighter, crispier texture. And if I can get panko as well, oh my gosh. But I think the Paula Patton thing had all of us collectively agreeing that we understand why her ex probably sung all those heartbreak songs because he wasn't eating good. Rice flour is amazing too. I think people want to clown on people like Paula Patton because of the fact that that video just didn't make sense. It honestly, to me, felt like another celebrity trying to be relatable and just showing us that her home training wasn't right. And TikTok is just a wealth of that. I mean, I honestly toyed with getting a TikTok account. I just don't want one currently. But if I've seen anything between Homegirl crying about stealing our men, Paula Patton's lack of cooking, TikTok just needs to tell publicists, if you're still a thing, because I don't feel like you're still a thing, keep your talent off of TikTok. They're embarrassing themselves and they're embarrassing their culture. And, you know, speaking of entertainment-wise, I know, and I want this to be the last time I speak on this, I know we've all seen Will Smith resigning from the Academy and them accepting it. We still see some people calling for his Oscar to be revoked. Fuck y'all. And I'm saying that with my whole chest. There are a lot worse monsters in Hollywood that got to keep that statuette. Actual fucking predators. What happened between Will and Chris, while out of line, wasn't uncalled for. And seeing people write think pieces on, was his jab really at Jada? Yes, it was. And it was at her appearance, and it was uncalled for, and he got checked for it. And that's how I feel. But I am kind of glad that Will Smith left the Oscars, because that just gives me yet another reason not to watch that award show anyway. It was the same for the Grammys. Why should I constantly watch an award show that congratulates people just based on sales or based on what their little group thinks says is art or music, when the people that I listen to, the movies that I watch, anything that I'm into isn't award worthy to them anyway? It's not for me. And exactly. But what I noticed and what my friend pointed out, which is another reason why I won't leave Twitter, is when you look at all the times black actors and actresses have won Oscars, it wasn't for roles that showed and highlighted our elders that were worthy of uplifting. It was always for the worst aspects of our society. Look at Denzel Washington. He didn't win for Glory. He didn't win for Malcolm X. Both roles were amazing. He won for Training Day, where he played a fucking thug-ass wannabe gangster cop. Look at Halle Berry. She didn't win for playing Josephine Baker or any of those amazing historical roles. She would never even get looked at for playing Storm, even though I will say I would have preferred Angela Bassett in the role. But instead, she gets it for Monsters Ball. Hattie McDaniels, one of the first women to win an Oscar that looked like me, won for being a maid. The Oscars don't care about black people. You don't have to make it clear. And they don't care about most non-white people because, like I said, I remember when Parasite won Best Picture, how many neckbeards came out of arms, pulled themselves in front of their computers to bitch because, oh, they're not even talking in English in this movie. How could they win Best Picture? It's a good fucking movie. It's just so tiring watching people vie for acceptability when no matter what, when we are ourselves, it's not good enough. When we act the way they want, they only expect that out of us, and I just don't care for that. If I really needed an award show that I wanted to sit through, there's Source, there's the BET Awards, if anything, but I always thought award shows were dumb anyway. The reward for me is the fact that people want to see you act. The reward for me is people wanting to see your characters and your stories if you're a writer especially. I tell Greg all the time, the reason why I'm even writing is because I want to leave that legacy. I want people to be talking about the characters that I put out there well after I'm dust. I don't care if anybody remembers me. I want them to remember the story. For me, that would justify everything that I stopped doing to pursue writing. So for awards to be given, I know some people need that validation. I don't. And I'm grateful to that aspect of my personality because that pat on the head is not worth putting aside who you are. Taking the constant micro and macroaggressions that people think, oh, well, Will Smith, he's rich, so he can take it. I guarantee you that his income level and level of fame did not stop the racism, did not stop all the bullshit that we have to go through in this world. And to act like just because he's successful, he should just take it is a part of the problem. But that's why I named the heart of this talk that the culture war won't be won with apathy, because some of you just want us to passively take dehumanization, take putting us to the side, who we are, how we were raised, take constant disrespect, and not have any pushback. And I'm sorry, Chris Rock learned the rules of fuck around and find out. Will didn't get up there when he was talking about him. You heard him yell, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. He was defending Jada, and I know for some of you defending us doesn't seem to matter. I know for some of you just can't look outside of how it made you feel, but I'm being a bit selfish this time. How I felt was he handled his business. Exactly, Beans. And I feel like that's another thing. Our generation always handled things that way. There are limits. We've all played the dozens, especially if you're from New York. Snapping on each other was something that we did out of love, but we knew there were lines you don't cross. And when somebody clearly gives you that warning and you don't listen, oh well, you fuck around and you find out. But apparently it was too much for the pretentious Oscars, so here we are. So hopefully this thing will die down. I know that people are still going to talk about it because it gets them clicks and views. I know that forever, whenever Watch Mojo or one of them weird YouTube list channels talk about there's controversies at the Oscars, that will always be up there. But you know what? In the grand scheme of things, it was never for us anyway, so I don't care. I won't be watching it, and now I have even more lack of a reason to watch it. Oh my gosh. Exactly. I'm telling you, one of the things I told Greg about junior high was I got into the most fights with it. And the worst one was history class one day. I was sitting there with this kid that was constantly picking on me. And I'm telling you, bullying was so normalized back then that nobody stepped in at first. And he made the mistake of saying he's seen my mom, who she had a history of drug abuse, but she didn't do a certain drug. But he called my mom a crackhead. And I don't know why this was the limit for me, but when you add on all the torment he heaped upon me, that was the button. He called her a crackhead. He said he seen her smoking crack in the car, and I don't know what came over me, but it was just like the Looney Tunes cartoon. I seen red. I jumped up from my desk, and I started punching him. They pulled me off of him like 3 times. Every time I seen him after that, it was on sight. I wanted to pummel that kid. I thought I was going to get expelled because I just wanted, you will not call my mom something like that. Even now, you know, I'm not on good terms with my mom. I make no bones about it. I know that she has done horrible things with certain substances, not that substance. So for him to say that in the middle of class, yeah, that was his Chris Rock moment, and he didn't get smacked. I pummeled my little fist into his face and his back, and any way I could punch him. I did not. I felt so angry at that point. That is fuck around and find out. That is how you handle stuff. You know? Exactly. And when you get older and you start to reflect, you realize that I know a lot of what my mom did and currently sometimes does still is her way to escape. I don't agree with it. I don't like the way she treated me, and I'm not going to let her back in because of all that. But I have more of an understanding now of why she is the way she is. And it helps me stay away from those patterns too. But I think people don't understand about that life is that you just handle it. You know? Exactly. The Trump kids, I can't even imagine. Because they're awful people too. They definitely lean into a lot of their father's ways. But I feel like they had no choice. He definitely does not love anybody but himself. He is a complete narcissist. He reminds me so much of my mom sometimes. Just totally into himself. Doesn't take responsibility for anything he does. Hey, Solomon, welcome to the chat. And just so sure of himself at times. For no good reason. And the Trump kids are the worst because they're just as bad at grifting. But you can tell they're thirsty for any kind of love or affection. Welcome to the chat, Chief Feldman. And it's just like, I understand why some people can't be about that life because you weren't raised that way. But for those of us who were, fuck around and find out is real. And Will took the consequences. He decided to opt out of the Oscars. You just lost more viewership with that, whether you want to admit it or not. The most interesting thing about your show was that slap. Honestly speaking, I don't give a crap about the Oscars. Every time it rolled around, it was like, and? So, yeah. Y'all just kept reinforcing what I already knew. It's not a space for people like me, so, yeah. Bye. And to Will Smith, hopefully you'll make another good movie soon that I want to go and bother renting because I'm not trying to sit in the movie theater while COVID's a thing. But until then, you know, you do you. I'm just so tired of people dictating what's acceptable, especially when you got shit like this. Because this has been up on the side most of my ranting, and I'm not letting this go because this is what's at stake. When people ask me why I'm pushing the voting stuff, and Nightbot's getting on my nerves because it was supposed to be a constant scroll to remind people of why we should vote, so I've got to get that fixed. But Tennessee, Oklahoma, and a few other red states, I hate the whole red versus blue because we're not a video game. These are real lives these legislators are fucking with. You got Tennessee literally making child bride laws. You got Florida with their Don't Say Gay bill. You got Oklahoma passing one of the worst heartbeat bills ever. It's about control. We are watching the death throes of conservatism because people are tired of their bullshit. And we are watching their party dwindle because they didn't want to mask up. They didn't want to trust science. They let COVID wreck their asses. So the only way they can hold on to power is to keep people stupid, keep people uneducated, and especially young girls barefoot and pregnant. That Tennessee bill, who does that serve except for older predators? Taking away the age laws of consent in the state, who's that help except for psychopaths who want control over people who aren't mentally or emotionally mature enough to understand that marriage is a job and a commitment that most of us will never fully be mature enough to handle. And that you shouldn't be looking at anybody under the age of 18 to commit to that. And I'll even do even solider. I don't think anybody under the age of 25 should be looking at marriage. Between the ages of 18 to 25, you should be figuring out what you want to do with yourself. Whether you're in art or crafts or whatever you want in your life, you should start figuring out you before you try to add a partner to the equation. And welcome to the chat, Terry Antico. What drives me nuts about this is that people want to control the situation. People want to make women feel like we're the lesser gender and that our only function is to push out babies. That's who that legislation's for. And they're dangerous because they see the world's changing around them. They had their attempt at a fascist coup and it failed. They had their attempt at a domestic terrorism attack and that failed. Their trucker convoy petered out. Broke asses are either getting arrested because they were also a part of that January 6th coup. It is a failure constantly for them. So the only thing they can do are these little bitty power grids. And that's because too many of us are still being apathetic in our state and local elections. We have to stop. This is what happens when you stay home, when you go, oh, what's my ballot going to do? Your ballot is the reason why Tennessee has been booked. Every time I hear about Tennessee, is something fucked up. Between banning books and now allowing child brides, how far do the conservatives have to go before you realize that there is no bottom for them? They will keep going lower and lower in their bid to dehumanize people, in their bid to control people, in their bid to keep their toxic traditional power. And our only way to successfully fight their grip on our country is to make sure that they do not have the legislative power to do this. They are legalizing child brides. How much lower do they have to go before you realize how much your vote matters? And I'm not talking to my people, because despite voter suppression, despite long-ass lines, despite all the shenanigans people throw at black people, we still turn out when we have to. I am talking to yous who don't have those issues. Those of you who are still saying things like you need to be motivated off the couch. Those of you asking, where's Merrick? I really hope that all the energy that you put on social media to bitch about the DOJ, which I'm still calling bullshit on, because most of you didn't care about the DOJ before Trump. But I'm calling you out. You better have your ballots ready for these midterms. I want to see numbers that shut up all the squawkers in the media who are already trying to depress voter turnout, all the negative Nancys, and a few non-ventilated conservatives who want to try to trap the vote their way. We need to turn out just like we did to get rid of Orange Julius and give our Senate a healthy dose of senators who will make sure that Manchin and Sinema continue to vote the way they're supposed to. Because unlike the squad, they actually do vote the way they're supposed to most of the time. And the House of Representatives, when Nancy Pelosi can keep ignoring the four squawkers of the squad. We need less amplification of Mima, who is still talking about student loan debt as if the world isn't fucking burning around us. And more senators who actually want to help their state, like Senator Ossoff. I want to see more historical appointments, like our SCOTUS, who will, I'm putting my lips to you, God, please confirm Justice Jackson. I want to see more of this. There is no reason for our government to underrepresent so many of us. Senator Ossoff is one of the few Jewish senators we have. That shit needs to change. Senator Duckworth, one of the few paraplegic Asian senators that we have. We need representation that represents us. And the only way we're going to get it is to vote for it. And yes, that means even you white voters. You don't have to vote conservative to vote for good white people. Conor Lamb is running in Pennsylvania. You want a decent white man to back him. In Florida, you can't tell me Val Demings isn't better than Marco. I can dump a Bible, but I've never really read a Bible. Rubio. Come on now. We have a chance. And don't even get me started on the governor level. Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Beto O'Rourke in Texas. And I'm going whole ham to make sure that Governor Whitmer continues to do the good job she's doing here in Michigan. But I can't do this alone, y'all. And we have to take our local elections seriously because I see the constant disconnect. And I see the people who exploit the disconnect. And that is the most dangerous thing, are the exploiters of the disconnect. The people who think, well, I got Biden in the power. I got Biden elected. Biden should just handle the stuff on the state level. Biden should just be Superman and wave a magic wand and fly to my state and handle all the crisis. That is not how civics work. And some of you are out here really showing your whole ass. That's why news publications are letting always on camera talking about how Biden is the reason why we don't have nice things. That's bullshit, and you're a legislator. And shame on anybody who parrots AOC's lie about who can do what. Ma'am, you are a legislator and you're wasting a seat. And she needs to be out of a job, for real, seriously. There are better Democrats. It is so frustrating seeing how many people thinking the president's a dictator and wanting the president to be a dictator. We're not going for that. We didn't want that when it was conservative. And I definitely don't want a benign dictator like some of you want. I want actual laws and legal legislation that not only protects humanity, protects civil rights, protects our right to vote, allows women to just be, whether we want to have babies or not, allows our medical procedures to be between us and our family and not dictated by some 80-year-old congressman who wants to marry a fucking 14-year-old because he's a pervert. Honestly speaking, this system has been working for a while, but we are seeing how hard the conservatives are willing to fight for its brokenness because they get a little bit of benefit that elevates them over everybody else. We want an even playing field. And the only way we're going to get that is to have House of Representatives who want to vote for it and senators who want to help draft and vote for it. We need policymakers. And they're not always going to be flashy. You might not always remember their names, but they're getting the job done. And if we want better, we have to vote for better. It really isn't that hard. But some of you really think that the culture war will just change with apathy. And eventually change is going to happen, but it has taken a lot longer than it needs to. And we are seeing people try to roll us back into those awful days of dehumanization being the norm. And we can't have that. They're already depriving their kids of education. They say, oh, the school's integrated, we'll white fight. Oh, you're trying to control the narrative there? We'll homeschool. You've given them lack of education, easy access to guns, and a freaking American flag to wave like that makes you a patriot. And you wonder why they go off the deep end and shoot things. You wonder why when a freaking preventable illness came, instead of masking up and doing what they could to self-preservate, they decided to lean into, I'm going to force the norms. You have let these people act like spoiled-ass toddlers unchecked for centuries. And then wonder why we can't get them in line anymore. And what I'm saying to you is it's not our job. We are not the conservative people's moms. We can't overnight change their mindset. So the only way to deal with their bullshit is to make sure they don't hold power. And too many people act like, well, it's impossible. Everybody in those states just think a certain way. That's not true. That's why they're doing these shitty laws. This is for real the death throes of the Republican Party. They are being cruel on purpose. This is a rallying cry for the few idiots they have left. And like I said earlier, we have seen when they group together, instead of being a mass wave of terror, they are idiots who smear poop on the Capitol and who are now wearing prison orange for their troubles. They are people who got into a trucking convoy during one of the worst gas hikes in the world. Dude whining about, oh, my last $50,000 went down the drain. I don't even have a tiny violin for your dumbass. Why did you need to go on a trucker convoy anyway? You're literally protesting the right to stay safe. I can't make that make sense. And I'm not here to educate those people. I'm here to make less generations of those people. And the only way we're going to do that is to have legislators who understand that the world's changing, that people don't want to be dehumanized. We don't want to be your punching bags anymore. We need legislators who give a fuck. And they're out there. They're not always going to be the person you want to have a beer with. And they all give you who they are. And trust black voters. If you need to trust anybody, especially, trust black women voters. I know we're not a monolith, but most of us have our finger on the button of what's what. I don't have to live in PA to understand that certain candidates will never get my vote. If a man chases somebody that looks like my son with a shotgun because he wants to be deputy dog, he ain't getting my vote. Especially if he likening himself to a democratic socialist, which is Bernie speak. Y'all know how I feel about the malware messiah. I don't do his nonsense at all. I don't believe in his level of socialism. And what bothers me about his level of socialism is how fraudulent it is. All in all, I think, especially for black people and even anybody from New York, we understand what a collective is. Some of us grew up in damn near commune-like societies where our families all pulled resources and took care of each other, where the whole idea of somebody being left out wasn't a thing. I think a lot of island cultures especially live that life, where no matter how much you make, it goes back into the family and we all share that stuff. So that, culturally speaking, a lot of us already had those leans, but we also know that certain people cannot do socialism because it's socialism that elevates their needs over everybody else's. Whereas real socialism, everybody is taken care of. And we are not emotionally mature enough for real socialism. Because too many people already put a higher value on themselves than they really were, and they don't want to even put in the effort to match that value. So yeah, as much as I want a socialized area where everybody, no matter what income level they came into, no matter what they look like, has a place in our society, has the ability to be educated, has the ability to be fed and clothed and housed. I also know that humans are selfish as fuck. Trickle down was the worst, Beans. And that's what bothers me about being a Gen Xer, especially watching people like make Reagan into a martyr when he was one of the worst presidents before Trump. He was awful, and his economic plans were shitty. And so many people from all walks of life lost their jobs. People were living in cars when I was a kid. New York was not that bastion of tourism. Times Square wasn't a hangout spot when I was a kid. You could get shot. And it just kills me that people want to act like it was a different time. It really was, because there were a lot of people pretending like the shit wasn't going on. Like you couldn't get mugged on a freaking train just riding and minding your business. I don't, I don't, ugh. I just need you to understand that change is going to happen. And being alive long enough to see so much rapid change happen, you either roll with it or you act like a painful toddler. And we are seeing the Conservative Party act like painful toddlers to this. Like, there is absolutely no reason to repeal things like the age of consent, but it's about control. There's no reason to pass a law banning people from being who they are if they're LGBTQ, except control. They feel like they were conceding way too much control, and it gets them away from their perfect little Christian theocracy if too many marginalized people have saying things. And FYI, we're going to have saying things. We are going to dictate things. We are going to have progress no matter how much you try to drag us backwards. Because some of you might liken or hearken for the 1950s, but those of us who were on the opposite end of that spectrum, we don't want to go back to that. We don't want to live that life, and you're not going to make us. You're not going to make our kids. So no, you know, like I said, DeSantis, he got these little battle victories. He's not going to win the culture war. If anything, he has highlighted everything wrong in Florida. And all I'm asking for those of you who are in Florida that might happen to watch this, do cast your ballot for whoever runs against him. He is an awful person, and he shouldn't have won in the first place. Yelling at teenagers, downplaying the COVID thing, and don't tell me that his state wasn't the reason why we had such a massive spike, because he wasn't shutting down spring break. That revenue wasn't worth the over 800K deaths that this country's had. But we have paid for the conservatives' lack of care for anything but their profits far too long. And if you are tired of their antics, all you have to do is make sure you vote in your state and local election. And don't act like your state is safe just because your current representative has a D by their name. And make sure that even if they have a D by their name, that they're doing what they need to do. That is one of the things that I need to be real about with our party that too many people don't get. Too many people bitch about, oh, I wish we could fall in line like the conservatives. I don't want to fall in line. Because I don't want our party to ever devolve into the we're pro-child brides mentality. We keep our party in check for a reason. There's a reason why Anthony Weiner is no longer in politics. And so many others like him. John Edwards, the guy from Minnesota who shall not be named because every time I bring him up, it's fucking months of his nonsense. He needs to go back to writing for SNL. It's the only time I liked him. But when our party has fuck-ups like Toenail Tosi, we get rid of them. We show them the door. And that is how we should be. I don't have to back somebody just because they have a D by their name. I want to hear what comes out of their mouth. And if I don't like what comes out of their mouth, they're not getting my vote. We have a prime pool of qualified candidates. I don't have to just vote for somebody because they look a certain way. I don't have to just vote for somebody because they're the same gender as me or gender identify in a way I feel comfortable. I want to know they can do the job because that's what we need right now. And I want to see more appointments that reflect the beautiful melting pot this country has. I don't want kids looking at the government and saying, this doesn't represent me anymore. And we can make that happen. But we have to do our bare minimum, which is to cast that ballot. And I know standing in long lines can be daunting, but Black people do it all the time. And a lot of you don't even bother to look around your state for the easy access voting, for absentee ballots, because a lot of states have a no questions asked, like here in Michigan. Some of them have health requirements. But if you are disabled and American and not on your absentee ballot list, why? We are the lowest form of life in most countries, sadly. People don't look at those who are qualified or on disability as human beings a lot of times. So we, more than anybody, need legislation that not only protects our right to exist, but doesn't target us. Because in a fascist state, we are often the first to be tested on. So if you are disabled in America and 18, you need to be voting because your life does depend on it. If you're LGBTQ and 18 and up, you need to be voting because your existence depends on it. Women especially. And it shouldn't take your state going after your right to either have or not have an abortion for you to be politically active. The fact that some people think that you should be a bride before you're even old enough to finish high school should be enough to spur any women. They really want to make us the handmaiden fucking tale. And we can't have that. We are more than fuckable meat bags and baby incubators. And I am so sick and tired of watching conservative people try to mold women into that. You might get a pick-me girl here and there. When it was people that parent, oh, I love the Lord, I'm just going to spread my legs just for you. But for the rest of us, we realize that we can have relationships and still be smart. Still want to have a house where we have equal say with our partners. There is nothing wrong with equality for those of us who realize that there is no power in being over people. But some of y'all have shown how socially conditioned you are to only find power in being above other people. And FYI, your way of thinking is dying because the world is tired of it. It's not sustainable. It's why so many people snap and go on the deep edge. Why so many people jump to doing extreme things like getting a gun and shooting people up. It's ridiculous. And the only way we are going to change that is with ourselves. We have to do our bare minimum. Whether it's self-reflecting, because a lot of us have to purge toxic stuff. I tell people all the time, I know I come across as a know-it-all. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still learning everything and unlearning a lot of things. And listening, especially when it involves things that don't directly impact me, but I care about. I don't have to identify as LGBTQ to care about them being the targets of a dehumanizing bill. Just like I don't have to be of a certain secular religion to realize that people attacking your religion is not okay. Whether you are Jewish or Muslim, whether you're Catholic or Christian, it is not my place to make you feel less than based on who you are. And there are a lot more people who think like me. And what we have to do is make sure that more people that think like us are in places where legislation happens, where laws are being passed, where old laws that dehumanize others are being repealed and destroyed, and keep it moving past the progress that these idiots who don't even want to take care of themselves want us away from. Because we already know equality feels like oppression to them. Because they've been socially conditioned that their only place in life is to be above somebody. We can't waste time worrying about them anymore. But what we can do is stop giving them so much power collectively over us. The whole reason why things get stymied is because we just give in to apathy. Oh, this state's red anyway. It doesn't matter. It matters to the people who are in those red states suffering. I am so tired of seeing people wash their hands because, oh, white people can't be reached. I don't believe that. I believe that there are some that dig in their heels. We currently are going through that. Without getting too into detail, living in Michigan was an eye-opener. I thought I left this shit behind in the South, but you see it all the time, the indoctrination of Fox News and other really dumbass right-wing propaganda stuff. It is a real issue for us here, but it is not unsalvageable. I don't believe that people are unreachable. I think you just have to get to that level with them. You just have to get to that place where they start to realize this ain't doing me any kind of well. I am miserable right now. And then you're always going to have those who just lean into the misery anyway, and they can't be helped. But after a while, people are going to start realizing that this change is going to happen with or without them, and they need to keep it moving into the future. And a lot of it comes with just our makeup. There are a lot of multi-blended families now. There are a lot more people sharing in cultural diversity and blending cultural stuff. Whether people want it or not, this world has decided we don't have to be so different that we can't find ways of being together. You can't get any different than me and my partner. He grew up in a small town surrounded with people that only look like him. He was playing a country song for me the other day, and I was like, I just started really listening to country with like Reba and Lil Nas X. I'm not that heavy into it. I am from New York. I remember when Billy Ray Cyrus came out with Achy Breaky Heart, and I was like, no, I'm not a country girl. But and I'm telling you, Granddaddy's from Texas, so I know he's rolling over his grave. It's never been my genre. But he played this song for me, and the look I gave him, because it just really wasn't my kind of song. He's into it. That's how he grew up. And then I watched I think it was like the top 20 rap songs of all time, and I was just singing along, because this was the stuff I grew up with. He didn't know nary a word. He didn't know nary a song. But we love each other. And he brings things from his growing up that amuses me, and I bring things from my growing up that amuses him. And I think that is what a lot of us have found. Yeah, some of us have grown up vastly different, but if we can find common ground, similarities, things that we like about each other, anything can work. And I think enough people are starting to realize that, and realize that the old ways didn't do any of us any good. We have to push past that. And then I think about kids like Kiddo, who are just trying to make sense of this world, and I want a world that makes more sense to them. I want a world that's less likely to look at them as if they're anything but amazing people that deserve to be here. So I got to do my part, and I can't let the constant negativity, the constant apathy stop me from doing that, because it doesn't take much. Paying attention here and there, who's running, listening to what they say, making sure that I don't put somebody in power that's going to stop a vote for something that can help. And right now, though my state is doing a lot better in revenue-wise since they legalized pot, we still have environmental issues that need urgent looking at. And the Michigan GOP, those runners only care about giving people more guns. So I've got to keep active. And if you're in your state, never let that blue condition you that your vote don't matter. Y'all need to turn out too. Not only to remind and show the people who are doing the work that you support them, but to let the red fuckers who are still trying to drag your state backwards know that they'll never get through. That line of defense needs to be so strong that conservatives can't wrap their mind around it. Because we already know they are not smart enough to out-strategize people who actually study, people who actually put our safety first. So we need to collectively show them a united front against their fuckery. It's really on us, y'all, and we have the tools to do it this year. This is a midterm year. A lot of seats are up for grabs. This is the year we can finally turn things around, get a working Senate, get a functioning Congress, all together, working with a president and vice president that are not only smart enough, but have the condition to handle the stuff here and abroad. Don't fuck this up by being apathetic. It really does matter. And I know I'm not talking to you guys in the chat, and I am so grateful to all of you for sitting in for this. But if you happen to share this on social media with anybody, I need them to understand that I am passionate about this, because we have seen what happens when too much apathy reign. And I can't let go of 2016 to 2021 because we lost so much. Family members to COVID, friends dehumanized. That Muslim ban I spent, and I'll wrap it up with this. When I lived in Durham, I helped out with all kinds of paperwork, mostly taxes, but I got into helping my neighbors with their immigration for their mother. And welcome to the chat, Lesbo Witchcraft. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Cheese Pops. Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting a raid. Oh my gosh. Wow. I was just, thank you so much, Cheese Pops. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for the hugs. Welcome to the chat, everybody. I was just going to tell the story about my neighbors when I lived in Durham. The thing is, I do a lot of paperwork. I worked in the office. Paperwork was my life. So helping them fill out the INS and other immigration forms was something I thought, sure, I can do this. And their grandmother at that time was in her 70s. They were just about to have another baby. They wanted her here. And we worked for 2 years. 2 years to get her over here. And it wasn't even a year in the Trump election that she got rounded up because she was Muslim. And it's like I tell people, when you feel far removed from stuff like that, stories like mine don't touch you. Stories like mine, oh, it's just a story. But I was there. I got to hug her. She's a sweet old lady that wouldn't harm a fly, makes bread with her hands. And she was rounded up. That is why we can't sleep on this, y'all. That is why I'm so passionate about doing these Bonnet Chronicles. Because all it takes is for us to be a little politically invested so that people don't get dehumanized for their faith, who they love, what they look like. And I know it's easy to go, I don't want to think about politics. It gives me a headache. I don't want to think about those things. But all it takes is a little political investment to keep those of us who are constantly on the target of that away from that. And I just know we're not heavily talking about it. I just want to reinforce why voting is important to me. And it's a story of why I feel that apathy is dangerous. I feel exactly, Rain Plus Cat, but too many people cross-contaminate the whole idea of what an extremist is. And I feel like the problem is there are a lot of people told, you don't have to think about politics, or politics should only look and act a certain way. And then when people who don't look or act that way are dehumanized, there's a distance there. And we've got to get away from that. And the reason why I brought up what I did for my neighbors is there's a direct impact for those who just stayed home, who just said, oh, I don't have to think about this. Oh, it's not going to happen in that way. I had people tell me I was being hyperbolic, but I lived in Durham. I seen the pro-Trump signs when I lived in Durham. I couldn't believe it either because I lived in New York most of my life, and I did not like that crumbo. But I knew the way attitudes were shifting. We have had years of people eroding not only people's trust in the government, but education. So I knew how bad things were going to get. And that is why I keep pushing for people to just personally invest themselves, even if it's just a little bit, in who represents you. And know that it's not just on the president. Every facet of the government needs to be functioning. So on a state level, it's really, exactly. Hey, welcome to the chat. And yeah, you probably got caught up in the Cheese Pop raid. I know you're used to gaming. What I like to do on my Bonnet Chronicles is talk about social issues, talk about real life stuff. And I've been lucky have a chat that comes in on Fridays, because I do this normally Friday nights and Tuesday afternoons, that come in, and we really do talk about the issues. I got done talking about how I feel about the Oscars, and it's not for me. I'm a geek. None of the stuff I watch gets nominated for anything anyway. But I honestly keep harping, and why I do the Tuesday format, especially though yesterday I had school stuff come up, is because I want to keep reminding people during this midterms what's at stake. And like I said, I know politics sometimes rub people the wrong way, and I'm not here to tell people how or who to vote for. I'm just asking you to vote. If you're old enough to, please do it. I don't care if you vote for somebody with an R or an I or a D by their name. I just don't want to see people throwing away their voice. And I've been very open about that. I lived in Florida. I've had to vote for both people with an R by their name because they were doing their job when it came to, like, the sheriff that I voted for, because he actually saved the life of kids. Would I vote for him again? It depends on his current leans. I've learned over the last few years that I can't trust certain people because they are okay with dehumanizing me. They're okay with telling me what I can do with my body. They're okay with passing laws in Tennessee saying that the age of consent no longer needs to be a thing. These are important things. And this is why I speak up on it. And welcome to the chat again. Glass, how are you doing today? I think shows like mine happen when people see that there are people getting a little too comfortable. We see it all over social media. We see people spreading that, oh, we don't need to think about things anymore. We see that false narrative that the White House can handle every little thing, and we don't have to pay attention to pocket cells of people passing laws that hurt people. And it's got to stop. We are that front line of defense against this fuckery. And it's got to be all of us. We all have to go in on this. Because, like I said, outside that personal story, I know that we've all been personally impacted by the constant, should we still mask up? Should we go out? I have become even more of a shut-in these last few years. I didn't even think that was possible. And I just think that if we want better, doing a bare minimum is not that hard. I got lucky. I found a nice little stick area in Michigan where I can be on the absentee ballot, where I don't have to stand in long lines like I did in the South anymore. But if I was in the South and I had to stand in those lines, I'd do that too. Masked up, boosted up, because I know what's at stake. When I was a child, my grandmother took me to vote with her. Stuff like that was always drilled into me as an important thing to do because they didn't want us to do it. And we have seen how people want to take our right to vote away from us, especially the 90 percentile style voters like me. I can't afford to sleep on this, and I'm asking those of you who don't have the voter suppression tactics labeled against you, who aren't the constant targets of dehumanization, but see those of us who are being targeted for who we are, just do your bare minimum with us. I guarantee you just that little personal investment in this will reap so many benefits for all of us. It's important to me. And exactly, lesbo witchcraft, I think it really shows kids the structure of it. When I lived in Durham, kiddo went with me every time. I would go early in the morning. They had the kiddie ballots. That's what I loved about Parkwood. I lived in Parkwood. There's a little offshoot in Durham, and they had it at the firehouse. And the kids would have their own little sections where they could fill out little mini ballots and get a sticker. Little things like that show them, oh, my mommy votes. He's 17. He's already pre-registered. He's going to be fully voting next year. It matters. And showing them why it matters, they take it with them. I took it with me. I think a lot of people think it doesn't matter until it's too late. And it shouldn't take your state legislators coming after things like who you are. like what's going on in Florida. It shouldn't take a power grid issue like what happened in Texas. Abbott is not good for that state. And I know Beto gives a crap. So we need to do everything we can to show Abbott the door. And I lived in Georgia, so I already knew the shenanigans Kemp did shouldn't have flown. But he was in charge of elections and then conveniently got to run as governor. And he is shook by Stacey Abrams. I'm not going to stop saying that. She has him scared, and she should, because Stacey Abrams cares about Georgia. And if Georgia's smart, they'll care to elect Stacey Abrams. But there are so many things we can all do on our own home turf. And I don't want people getting comfortable, because that level of comfort leads to apathy. And seriously speaking, y'all, it matters. Because like I said, like I started out with that tweet that I had up earlier, they are literally going after age of consent now because it's about control. They don't care if a child as young as 14 gets married, because all for them is about making sure that they have people who obey instead of people who are just allowed to live. And I don't know about any of you, but my most successful relationship is the one I'm currently in, where we equally have say in my house and his house. Kiddo feels loved and valued. Nobody is above anybody because we work together. It's called a teamwork. And I don't understand the people that are like, oh no, in my house we have to have this hierarchy. It never works out. Every single relationship that I've seen that tried to have that old-fashioned mentality devolved into cheating, devolved into violence, and devolved in divorce. Because when you're in a house where your say doesn't matter, why even bother after a while? Nobody wants to live like that. That's why so many people are lashing out and angry. You want a partnership, and you want to be old enough to be, like I said, if somebody had tried to get me at 14, after all the stuff I went through, into being somebody's wife, that would have been a nightmare. I wouldn't have wanted to survive that. I didn't even like it when I was married in my 20s. There has to be a time where you get to know who you are and find somebody who knows who they are and figure out how to work through things. And there are a lot of people that are starting to understand that. But there are still people who are in those death throes that want to keep us tied to toxic traditions. I'm just here to remind you that you don't have to be tied to that anymore. We all have a life to live, and I would rather see y'all have a life with more smiles and days where you're just happy to be here than the stress of a society that pressures you into things you're not wanting to be a part of. I think we are getting there, and we are seeing with these ridiculous laws in some of these states, the people who want to fight to keep us stuck in awful. That's why I said they're in the death throes, literally. And we can be a strong line of defense if we do our bare minimum. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, y'all. I was not expecting a raid. Thank you so much, Cheese Pops, for bringing everybody in. I do game on Sundays right now. I play DDO with my friends. I think I will be streaming Lost Ark soon. Right now, with Kiddo's school schedule, I never really plan any gaming streams because we share my office. So game streams for me right now are just limited to Sunday, though I have been playing a lot of Lost Ark, and I would love to show some of the ways I respond to the NPCs in that game. Eventually, I will get the gaming streaming up a bit more. But I want to thank you all who joined in to the chat. Thank you for the raids. Thank you everybody who has been supportive. I taped the mental health vlog as well, so I will be uploading that one first. and then I will have this Bonnet Chronicles up. And if this is your jam, if you ever want to just sit in and listen or join into the chat, I do these on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. normally, and Friday nights, every Friday night, unless something happens health or out of my hands wise, at 7 p.m. EST. And we talk a wide range of topics, but it's mostly social issues, because for real, the only way we are going to have a better society is to confront the things that are roadblocks and move past them. But I'm going to wrap this up before the teen starts pacing for dinner and before the hangry starts to set in. But I will see some of yous online and some of yous in your streams. I know that yous are amazing streamers. If you don't follow Glass Jaws, please do. He is one of my favorite streamers. I think you were playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland the last time I seen you. Rain plus Cat. Lesbo Witchcraft is an amazing streamer as well. Amazing artist as well. I love Rain plus Cat's cat too. You know, he's just a sweet and amazing guy. Cheese Pops and Sherby are two of my favorites. If you see me on Twitch, I am in their streams a lot. Axiom and I are constantly in their streams. But Twitch is an amazing community, and I feel lucky to be a part of it. And I thank you all. And I will definitely be back here on Friday night for a new Bonnet Chronicles. Hopefully something a bit more fun to talk about. I know I ranted about Twitter's drama and nonsense as well. Hopefully that will lighten up as well. But I will definitely be back soon. Thank you, Lesbo Witchcraft. I hope that I'm informative. I tell everybody, I'm learning as I go along too. I just figure I will talk about issues and share with y'all and maybe learn a thing or two as well. But I'm going to wrap this up. I will see you all in a little bit. And you take care and have a great evening.